Thank you so much. Wonderful intro. So I was happy when I arrived here because last week I was at a conference in Paris and I did the opening keynote, and they had a bookstore there, and they did not sell my book. Oh, guys, seriously, you have a keynote speaker, and there were lots of books except the one by the keynote speaker. Oh, duh. So I got here and said, my books at least, smart people, these Austrians. Let's not start a cultural war here, but anyway. So I was happy when I arrived. So welcome everyone, welcome to the people in business class section. You need orange juice or champagne? Champagne, please? Okay, I'll get that in a moment. Yeah, this is about my new stuff that I have produced in the recent months or last year. Some of you may know me for previous books that I wrote. Management 3.0 is about the role of the agile leader in organization that I wrote almost 10 years ago. How to Change the World is a little book as a self-publishing experiment that you can get for free. You just go to that URL, subscribe to my mailing list, download the book, and unsubscribe. Easy. Yeah. Anyone can do that. Super simple. Yeah. And the last one, Managing for Happiness, is more practices for agile leaders, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about something else. This is one of my favorite pictures of change in the industry. I am so old that I remember what happened over there in the 80s in the music industry with my Sony Walkman, 13 songs on each side. I had to turn it around, and oops, the tape got stuck. I had to put it back in with your pinky finger. And then that was the 80s, and then the 90s, CDs became big. A little bit of chauvinist pride here. Philips played a big role. I'm Dutch, so yeah, I was proud of that. And then in 1999, something happened. Does anyone remember what happened in 1999? Napster happened, yes. Illegal downloads of MP3s. Now, the experts disagree on how much of an effect this really had on the music industry because they said, well, those people were not buying CDs anyways. But then I say, well, then what else happened? Because revenue started to collapse right from that moment. What a coincidence. So, and then a little while later, iTunes emerged, legal downloads by Apple, and then Spotify and Deezer, the streaming platforms. Well, we know all that. I show this to give you an indication of how much change there has been in the music industry. And that's just one industry. This happens in many, many industries around the world, and that probably will not surprise you. So it is, of course, for good reasons that CEOs and management teams are a bit frightened of all this disruption that is taking place, whether it's banking or mobile or whatever. And one of the most famous business books was written by Clayton Christensen, who's much more famous than I am. And he called this disruptive innovation versus sustaining innovation. You have these leaders in an industry who own the market, basically, but they are being disrupted by these startups that start with products of lower quality. The quality of downloaded music was bad, low bit rate and everything, but there was something else that the young ones appreciated, which was getting it through the internet, instant gratification. And then the disruptors, those startups, they improve faster and then basically disrupt the whole industry. So this happens again and again, and this is called the innovator's dilemma. How can we optimize our current business models, make money with CDs, because that's still the money maker, the cash cow, while at the same time also being disruptive and have new ideas for the online world. We would like to be both, and that's what you see in the banking world and any other industry. How can we milk the cash cows at the same time also innovate in a disruptive way? That is very, very difficult. Some person said to me, some agile coach, Jurgen, this is like the holy grail. If you solve this problem, you will be a billionaire. Well, I'm going to solve the problem now. I'm going to be rich in 50 minutes, but let's see if that works. So the question is, how can we have a startup culture and at the same time not give up on our scale-up culture? We want that as well, of course. Now, there are a number of things that people try. I have been on an innovation steering committee once, for example. I don't know if some of you have these in your companies, but it works a bit as follows. We have 3 people on the steering committee. Me, a CIO, and a CTO, and someone else, and we look at the idea box, and then ideas submitted by employees, and the first idea we looked at and we said, that didn't make any sense whatsoever. Next idea, that makes sense, but that's like 100 million euros. We cannot afford that, so off it went. And then the third idea we dismissed for some reason. And then, oops, idea box was empty. We had rejected all the ideas. Employees very demotivated. You are rejecting all the ideas. And we said, you should offer better ideas. And then nothing came out of that. That didn't work. And I see that happening in other companies as well. Another thing that people try, Clayton Christensen says this in his book as well, just put the innovation center elsewhere, because the corporation will kill all young ideas because it sees those young startup ideas in the company as cannibalization of the current business model, and it will try to kill them culturally. So put them away in another building, or another city, maybe even another country. That seems to work, but that is like, it's not a really good solution. That's like a fix, that's like a quick fix to the real problem. And then the mother company is going to complain that nothing ever good comes out of that innovation center. It just costs a lot of money, and we haven't seen anything useful because they're just playing with their air-on chairs and fashionable skippy balls and whatever. But it's not serious work. And then I have people complaining to me, said, well, we have hackathons. We have management supporting us with hackathons and inspiration days, and then we generate 100 ideas, and then nothing happens. There's nothing succeeding the hackathon. Everything dies, and that also demotivates everyone. Nice attempt, but doesn't work. And then we have, I'm sure some of you recognize some of these pictures, the agile scaling frameworks. Safe, less, DAD, Spotify model, X-Scale, Holacracy, you name it. Lots of great ideas that others have collected in books and presentations. But none of them solve the innovator's dilemma. There's not a single framework there that says, how can you milk the cash cows and at the same time have disruptive innovation in the same company? There is no framework for that. Until at the end of this talk, I will show you. So, we're going to solve the innovator's dilemma. It requires 3 keys to its solution, and I will start with the first one. I did a lot of traveling around Europe and talked with some of the disruptors. I was at Spotify in Stockholm. I was at TransferWise in Tallinn. I was at Flixbus in Berlin, and Booking in Amsterdam, etc. Lots of smart people disrupting their industries, and I talked with them about things that went well and that did not work well. And what I noticed is that there's a language in the startup world that everyone seems to use of the maturity levels of the business model, basically. Like, it usually starts with someone having an idea.
iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket.
1,000 songs in your pocket. Wasn't that amazing back then? I had just 25 songs in my pocket. That was like, 1,000 songs, whoa. And now we have 1 billion songs in our pocket, and people are like, meh. Doesn't have my favorite album. I have to go to YouTube because Spotify doesn't have it. So our requirements have evolved. But back then, that was an idea by Steve Jobs. 1,000 songs in your pocket. He knew I can make a better MP3 player, basically, than the ones that were already on the market, which were much too technical. Stage 1, someone has an idea. Stage 2 is problem-solution fit. That is the language that the startup scene uses. Can you now find evidence that it is worth solving this problem? Before investing any money in it, before forming big teams and creating products, first check if there is a real need. Kickstarter is full of problem-solution fit tests with fake products that don't exist yet, but they just test the demand in the market and see if it is worth solving this problem. They just make a video of a product that is not existing yet. That's a great idea. So we can call that minimal viable products of the low fidelity type. They call that MVPs in lean startup language. Just run a test to see if people want this, to even bother investing in it. If they don't want it, great, we've saved ourselves a lot of money. Let's solve another problem then. So one example that I often give is, suppose you want a new coffee bar, because yes, I like coffee. So lots of coffee examples. Suppose you want a new coffee bar in a certain street. You want to test if that is the right street to open a bar before leasing a space and designing the cafe, etc. You could rent a cart, just a mobile trolley or whatever, stand there for a day and just make coffee with an espresso machine or whatnot, and just measure how much demand is there in that street. Is there enough throughput of people? I actually know a small cart like that in Brussels, where they were in several places in the city just testing how much demand there was in that place. And then finally they arrived at one spot just between a student campus and a metro station. That was the perfect spot that they found. And then they stayed there. That was great testing that they did. So in the startup scene, we run lots of tests like that. You can find templates, lean experiment templates that say, for example, my learning goal is the best location. My assumption is that the best location is Side Street, but I want to test that, so I'm going to sell coffee from a mobile cart on Side Street, and when I fail, when I sell fewer than 50 coffees per day, then I will try another one. That is validating a hypothesis. Startups are really good at that, or should be really good at that. The next stage is formation. Stage 3. Now you have validated that there is a demand, you found the best street, okay, you open a bar, you will need money, you will need baristas, you will need a team, so now it is time to make your product. We sometimes call that vision founders fit, the right founders for the cafe, the right founders for your technical product or whatever. You need a budget from management, or you need informal investors if you are an external startup. You need capital, basically. Many startups play with a lean canvas, a very popular tool that's just a categorization of your business model. Like, we need to run tests for our unique value proposition. We need to run tests for our optimal revenue streams. We need to run tests for etc. Testing all over the place. Stage 4. Some said to me, this was the most difficult one for us, but I agree. I also find it super hard. Product market fit. Can you now make a product that is actually working in the market? Because people might buy into the idea, but then they're not really using your product. That's not going to work. Then you have false positives, basically. That sends you off in the wrong direction. So you need to test as early as possible that you have a product that works. Of course, Apple did that testing internally because the market was basically, the proxy for that was Steve Jobs. He had the rare talent of knowing exactly what people needed without people realizing that themselves. But most people are not like that. So you'll probably have to test yourself. Funny anecdote I read about Steve Jobs and that testing was that the product team came with the next prototype of the iPod to Steve Jobs, said, here's a new version, and he looked at it and said, it's still too big. And the team said, but we can't make it any smaller. They knew his demand for making it small. This is the best we could do. I said, no, I don't believe it. It can be thinner. No, we can't. Well, let's see. So he walked with the iPod prototype, the MVP, to an aquarium. He dropped the prototype in the aquarium, and then bubbles came out. He said, look, there's air in there. Get it out. Amazing. So next time, if you're uncertain about your MVP, just throw it in an aquarium. It's a great idea. So anyway, sidetrack there. Testing of your product with a small set of customers to see if people are actually using it. Product market fit. Now suppose that you have people raving about, oh, it's a great product, and they're actually using it, and etc. Are you then ready? Are you ready to scale up and sell it to thousands more? No. One thing I heard again and again is the number one reason startups fail is they try to scale up too early. They're not ready for it. They might have something that seems to work, but they're not ready with the complete business. If you did everything correctly, you faked everything in the back end. You have a product that seems to work, but in the back end it's total chaos. Nothing is integrated, the financial systems, the support systems, you have technical debt going through the roof, it's a disaster. No customer will really see that. They just see the testing of the product. So you have to fix all that, but before you're trying to take off. Another issue that you need to address is that you're switching to a different kind of user. Because in the early stages, when you're testing your MVP, you're working with what they call the innovators and the early adopters. They love you for your idea and your vision, and they accept that the product is still a little bit buggy, and then they feel proud of being the first one to find a bug, and then they will report it to you, and that feels like a badge of honor, like I was the one who found that problem. But then you switch when you scale up to the early majority. Those people are not like that. They just want a product that works. And if they find a bug, they will not report it to you first, they will report it to their friends on Facebook and Instagram, right? That you don't want to have. So quality concerns have to be addressed. All of that is this, the next stage, the stage 5, the stabilization basically. Business market fit. You have a product that works, now you need the whole business to work before scaling up. And by this time you could switch from a lean canvas to the business model canvas, which is the original canvas by Alex Osterwalder, where he addresses a few other topics such as strategic partnerships. As long as your product doesn't work, no partner will be interested in partnering with you. But when you have proof that a product works, then in stage 5 you can figure out what are the best partnerships, and you can test different kinds of partnerships, etc. Stage 6, now everything changes. By the way, the picture that I have, the pictures I have are of my mother. She's very proud to be in my presentation. And this is her becoming a teenager, and you see of the look in her eyes that she discovered new possibilities as a human being, right? As a teenager, everything changes. We all remember that, right? It's the same with business models. It's the same with businesses when they are about to graduate to adulthood. Lots of things change at this point. One thing that you can do from now on is growth hacking, for example. Very popular nowadays. It is basically trying to optimize the hell out of something that seems to work, basically, but with endless tweaking of messages and texts and colors and positioning of buttons, etc. You can achieve gigantic conversion rate optimization by endless tweaking. The premise is that you already have something that works. You just make it 1,000 times more effective. Right? But I made the mistake of sending my startup team to a growth hacking course a year or so ago, but we were in stage 4. We did not have product market fit. In hindsight, that was stupid, because we did not have something that worked. Well, if you multiply 0 by 1,000, what would you get? Still 0, waste of my money. So save that for something that actually works and that you then want to scale up. That is stage 6. Now, last couple of stages are a bit boring. Stage 7 is you're now an adult, okay, you make money. From stage 7 is the first stage where your product should be profitable, right? Stage 6 scaling, you can still do that with funding by venture capitalists or whatever. But by stage 7, as Spotify basically has just graduated to stage 7, where they're now profitable, so they moved from 6 to 7, they cornered the market, they now rule. They're the #1 platform in streaming audio in the world. You can't think about streaming without thinking about Spotify, basically. So that's stage 7. Stage 8 is expansion, midlife crisis, for the product, for the human being, dressing in colorful clothes. When a product emerges in 16 colors, you know the end is in sight. They ran out of ideas. What else can we do to stay relevant? Oh, we don't have a pink version yet. Oh, what a great idea. What a great idea. Let's make pink, blue, and the whole rainbow and everything. And yeah, that's stage 8. Stage 9 is, okay, let's just admit we now have a senior citizen in the company, basically. It is just costing us money again, maybe, from this point. But we love the product still. We keep them up and running. No time for euthanasia yet on the product, I mean. Yeah. And then stage 10, okay, it is over. Sadly, we have to give up on it. The end is there. And we make it a project, offboarding customers, and hopefully we have a new product to have people use from that point. This is a typical life cycle of any product or service. It could take a year. In the gaming world, this whole pattern could take just a year, and then it's over. In the insurance industry, this could take a century for an insurance product, but the pattern is the same. The pattern is very similar. This is how it played out for the iPod. You can see here The early stages are not on the screen. That's the internal testing with Steve Jobs and aquariums and everything. And then stage 5, 6, rapid scaling. 7, they cornered the market. They're the ruler, the leaders. Stage 8, oh my God, what do we do? Let's make a pink version. And then 9, 10, dead. Anyone still using an iPod? Just curious. Anyone still using an iPod? No iPod users? Yeah. No, it's officially declared dead. All right, let's be clear about that. So, I'm sorry? The previous slide, this one. Yeah? All right, thank you. So what I noticed, and this is one of the main takeaways from me for writing that book, is I realized in my conversations with all the startups and scale-ups, the rules are not the same for different family members. That makes total sense when you talk about families. My brother, this is my little brother, by the way, this was me when I was 10 years old. Can you see the sexy pants that I wore? I was one of the first in the world, I'm pretty sure. I'm quite the trendsetter, you know. So sturdy big belt over there. This is my little brother, Jeroen. You can see the mischief on his face. He was already planning something devious there. He was always like that. My brother, he asked my mother, why is it that Jurgen can come home anytime he wants and I have to be home at 6? He thought it was not fair. It's not fair. Well, first of all, my mother said, different rules. Different life cycle stages. Jurgen is 3 years older. You might have the same rules when you get to that stage. Oh, and by the way, on the condition that for at least a year, I don't have to pick you up from the police station anymore. That was my little brother. Yeah, little rascal. Yeah. Amazing. I love my brother, by the way. So at one time, the police called at 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, we have your son again. And my mother was like, you wake me up for that? Just I'll be there at 10. Amazing. Yeah, he had a reputation, but I love him. Anyways, so the rules change. The rules change over the life cycle of business models. So, for example, objectives and key results. I'm sure some of the people in the audience know about OKRs. Very popular since Google has started using them and others copied. So multiple objectives per person, per team, and it is a bit complicated, but it's a fantastic idea. You know what? In the startup scene, nobody talks about OKRs. Literally nobody. It is not a topic. They all talk about the North Star metric, which is a different paradigm. It's much simpler. One metric that rules them all. What is the one thing for our startup team to focus on? That is the one metric that matters. We ignore the rest for a while. You have laser focus as a startup team. So it could be the daily active users or monthly recurring revenue. The shareholders like that. Or something that represents customer value, like the minutes of player activity per month per user, something like that. You can choose. But the point is, it's not the same for everyone. Right? You treat the kids as kids, you treat the adults as adults. You have different rules in the family. Not everyone is the same. So for the young business models, the kids, maybe you can do North Star. And when they grow up from the teenage years, they could do something more complicated, like the other adults in the company. They could do OKRs. Why not? And it is the same for how you pay people, how you compensate them, how you do recruitment, etc. You should not have the same policies for everyone in the whole company, because you're going to kill the organization like that. You will treat all the business models as adults, which they are not, if you want to have disruptive innovation. Startups are managed in an entirely different way. So be inspired by how people run startups and then have policies specifically for those units that operate in a startup fashion. So different ages need different practices. That is the number one key to address to solving the innovator's dilemma. But I have two more. I heard the term design thinking when I just peeked across the corner over there when I entered the room. I love design thinking. This is one of the popular representations of it by D-School IDEO in the US. A lot of emphasis on empathizing with users and understanding their needs. Another one is this one by the Design Council in the UK. I love all that stuff. I love the books. I enjoy talking with designers. There's just one thing that I don't like, and that's these two pictures. They look very linear to me. I don't like that. I'm from the agile community. I love things that are iterative, that are cyclical, right? And if you show things like this to someone who doesn't know what they're doing, then they're going to implement this in a waterfall approach. 5 steps. Okay, let's empathize in January. In February, first 2 weeks, we will define, and then we will end with ideate in February. That means in March, we can prototype and test in April, and then we launch. You'll have a waterfall process again. That happens. That actually happens. So I tell the designers, guys and girls, there's something wrong with your picture. You are designers. You should understand this. Duh. There's a cycle missing, a circle. It is better in this picture as the Lean Startup picture. Build, measure, learn. It has a circle. What an amazing idea. That's great. That's just one thing that is a problem in this case, in my opinion. It says build, measure, learn. Build what? Where do the ideas come from that we build? Oh, the Lean Startuppers say you should get out of the building and empathize with people, like design thinkers say. And okay, cool, but it's not in your picture. Everyone looks at your picture and then they just start building stuff without looking at people's needs. So what I did, and that's my talent that I have, I rarely have an original idea, but I'm really good at mixing other people's stuff. Just connecting the dots, basically. So I looked at design thinking and Lean Startup, and I matched the words and the pictures. I saw that Lean Startup distinguishes the last step, learn, which the other pictures do not mention. They mean it, of course. Design thinkers say you have to learn from what you do. But I appreciate that. And they all miss the first one that I added. That was an original idea. It is, when you empathize with people, you've already made a decision. Which people to empathize with. There are 7 billion people on the planet almost, or something like that. I cannot empathize with everyone. I have difficulty empathizing with 2 people. So I may have to make a selection of which customers to empathize with and leave other problems to others to solve. So the context, the framing, they call it in design thinking. So I made a new picture. I keep everything that design thinkers and Lean Startuppers say, because I totally believe in it. I just say you need a different picture, a visualization. This is mine. I made it a circle. I made it rotating, express the rotation there. And I thought, I did not like the word circle, it sounds boring, so I checked the dictionary for alternatives, and I found vortex, and I thought, yeah, that sounds cool. That sounds like tornadoes and whirlwinds and something dynamic. That's what I want to be associated with, not some boring circle. And yeah, and it also radiates that everything can happen at the same time. You don't need 7 discrete steps on different days or something. It's sure, if that works for you. But the real design thinkers, they tell me, Jurgen, my work is a mess. It's a total chaos. I can do empathizing on Monday morning, and on Monday afternoon I'm looking at test results, and on Tuesday I have hypotheses, and it's just a big mess. But at least I do everything that the vortex says. I have work going on all the time. And that's fine. It's really like a whirlwind, stuff streaming into each other. I'll give you 5 examples of practices that are popular around the world. This is a picture of an empathy map my team created a couple of months ago. You just throw at a wall everything that you've seen and heard about your customer. What are they talking about? What are they seeing in their environment? What are they hearing, etc. To just have a picture of what is going on. That is part of the empathizing process. Really interesting practice. Another practice, what you can do with the results, is then converge to a lean persona, a description of the archetypical user. That person does not really exist, but it tells a story of the person's need that we want to address. Like, our client is Mark, 34 years old, wants to look really hip and trendy, and doesn't find any coffee bars on his way to work in Amsterdam or something like that. They're probably the wrong kinds of coffee bars that he will find. So that's a picture of an ideal customer. And it turns out it is easier for product teams to resonate with a picture, a story like that, than with demographics, with statistical information about clients. Another practice, also advocated by Clayton Christensen of the Innovator's Dilemma, he said, you need to figure out what is the job to be done. What actual problem are you trying to solve? It could be more than just grabbing a high-quality coffee between home and work. It could be something what Starbucks has called the third place, something to sit and enjoy the coffee and get a bit of work done for an hour. That means we need comfortable chairs. That means we'll need Wi-Fi. That means several other things that have to be in place to be that third place. That is the job to be done, not just the coffee. The coffee just has to be good enough in the whole picture. Same for me when I look for coffee bars. It's useless if they have perfect coffee, but I can't sit. Then I will not buy the coffee because it does not get the job done for me. I need to be able to sit and get work done. Another practice, value proposition canvas by Alex Osterwalder, who also created the business model canvas. He drilled down into the unique value proposition box and then said, well, on the one hand, we have our problem that we want to solve in the world. On the other hand, we have our job to be done and our lean persona. Now, what are the ideas that we have of connecting these two? What we see and what our vision is. These are all the features that our product will have to offer. Solving the pains and addressing the gains, and that is creating hypotheses, basically. And then the other one, the lean experiment template that I showed me before. All of these, they fit somewhere on the innovation vortex. Empathy mapping, well, obviously that is empathizing over there. And then the job to be done and the lean persona that is over here, synthesized, defined. And the unique value proposition, the ideas about the backlog, they go here. And then lean experiments, that's all over there on that side of the vortex. It is everywhere. All of these practices, they fit somewhere on this picture. Another example that I have, a silly example, but I love telling you about it. Journey mapping. I did some journey mapping with my team as well. You have a product, you have an intended use by a customer client, and then you figure out what is actually happening with people. How are they finding our product? How are they using it? What are the wow moments? And what are the what the F moments? Usually you'll figure out there are more what the F moments than wow moments that people have when they use a product that you will be totally surprised about. And you need to find the touch points with your product or service. With coffee, for me, the first touch point is Google Maps. When I'm in a city, I did that yesterday here in Vienna. I am somewhere, I type coffee, open now, highest rated, sort by distance, and then I look at what is available. And the first coffee bar that says barista or self-ground coffee beans or something like that in its description, there I go. It might take me 20-minute walk, but that's enjoyable. It's nice weather, and then I arrive at a coffee bar and there is no coffee bar. Someone did not take care of the address details on Google Maps. That's the first what the F moment, right? That's a lost customer. You did not take care of your address details. How hard can it be to make sure that the data is correct? That's where I find you. So I go to another coffee bar. I get there, closed for the holidays. Okay, next one, Starbucks. Anything is fine. I really need my coffee now. I'm walking for 45 minutes. So I arrive at a coffee bar and it looks great. And they have fancy espresso machines and people are working there with computers, so probably Wi-Fi, that's great. Comfortable chairs, oh, I'm happy already. I order my cafe latte, and what do they give me? A latte macchiato. Oh, that's another what the F moment. For those who do not understand what I'm talking about, this is a very important moment in this presentation, okay? Here we go. All right. Over there on that side, and this is particularly important in Austria, I've noticed. On that side, we have the latte macchiato. It is an Italian invention, right? Literally stained milk. It starts with a glass, usually hot milk in it, and then you pour in the espresso so that it is stained milk, latte macchiato. This is how Italians teach babies how to drink coffee, basically. On that end, we find the cafe latte. It comes from the US, right? It is because Americans thought the cappuccinos were a little bit too strong. So they made the cups bigger, just threw in more milk, and then you have the milky coffee, the milk cafe, the cafe verkeerd, the cafe latte, right? It is the opposite. And then you can make latte art, which is great, and then you have a wow moment if you have a barista who can really make fancy latte art, and people take pictures and they Instagram you, and awesome. You cannot do that with a latte macchiato. You might be able to make espresso art, but it's really difficult. So I order cafe latte, I get a latte macchiato. I said, that's not a cafe latte. And the barista says to me, that's the same thing. I say to the barista, well, if that's the same thing, then a barista is the same as a plumber, okay? You clearly don't care about the order of the fluids, which is essential for me as a coffee lover. So, lesson learned, coffee with milk is not milk with coffee, right? Let that sink in with the Austrian audience. I'm on a mission here in Europe. I'm on a mission. Okay, so back to the topic at hand. The innovation vortex, the journey mapping, of course, that sits over there. It is testing, sensitizing. What are people doing with a product? How are they experiencing it? What are the wow moments? What are the what the F moments that I regularly have? Now, we get to the second point, solving the innovative dilemma. Startups are all about disruptive innovation. They try to disrupt the status quo. They want to replace the leaders in an industry, basically. And that's their job. That's the kids. Let them be kids. Most of them will die, but some will survive. And the innovation vortex rotates all the time. Here you have one person and maybe a small startup team over there doing everything. It is anarchy. It is anarchy on a startup, I tell you. But they try to cover everything in the vortex because it's really early days. But the older you get, the more you switch from being disruptive to being sustaining. You have something that works and you want to have it keep working. You still need to innovate as an adult. You still need to learn, but it will be more slowly. There will be lots more people involved. Your division might be 200 or 500 people that are doing all the practices in the innovation vortex, right? It could be that some people just do one thing very well, like empathizing with clients. They're out there on the road all the time, just listening to the market and collecting input. That's their job. They specialize in it. Here you can have specialists. There you will not have specialists. Specialists kill your startup, basically. But here they do a great job making your business more efficient. That's what you need to think about. So innovation happens all the time. That's the second key to solving the innovative dilemma. You gradually shift from being disruptive to being sustaining if you survive, of course, when you survive the game. And now we're going to talk about the game. The third thing that we need to solve the innovative dilemma. So I told you about the Innovation Steering Committee that I was part of, and what we did wrong, I now realize, was we tried to predict which of the ideas would be successful in the idea box. Well, we had only 3. That was not enough. How do you predict which one is going to be the successful one? You can't. And so we were afraid to commit because we had this idea. Once we commit to it, we're stuck with it. We'll have to finance it until the day of the launch. And that was like, oh, crazy. I don't dare to do that. It sounds very risky. There's a very risky approach to innovation. But more common sense risk managers take an entirely different approach, as explained in this wonderful metaphor by Robert Cooper.
The first thing to remember is it's a bit like playing poker. When you sit down at the poker table and you start betting, you don't put all your money on the table. You put maybe $2 or €2, and you get a few cards. And then you bet a little bit more money, and you get a few more cards and more information. In other words, new product projects, you never bet all the money at the beginning. It's a stepwise process. It's an incremental commitment. As you learn more, you bet more.
This is crucial. New product development, you never bet all the money in the beginning. It's a step-by-step process. Like poker players. As you learn more, you bet more. The further you get, the higher the stakes, because by that time, others have dropped off. They have folded. Those startups have literally folded, like poker players. We're out. You have the winners who go on until you have one or two that survive. So we saw it as a pipeline of innovation. We were looking at ideas and committing to one, and then we hoped that it would come out at the very end. It was like an innovation digestive system. We're trying to poop innovation, basically. But that doesn't work. We need something else. We need a game. You need a game in the organization. It's like the Game of Thrones. Season 1, lots of candidates for the Iron Throne. And then season by season, they're killed off. More and more are removed. By the end, season 8, we have just a few contenders for the Iron Throne. And then they burn down the Iron Throne. So that's the game that they have to play. And Robert Cooper, in his book about stage gate process, which looks like this, says, out of 60 ideas in stage 1, only one will ultimately be profitable. That's a 60 to 1 attrition rate. Imagine having 60 ideas in your idea box, and you have to predict which of those 60 is going to be profitable. Good luck with that. You can't. Better have all of them start, and then make a program where stage by stage they will be removed. Like in this case.
Upside, inside out. She's living la vida loca. She'll push and pull you down.
It sounded like 2 3-year-olds who've got flu trying to sing.
I love this guy. He has such great insults. Amazing. So this is an innovation committee new style, right? You create a game, you create an arena for all the ideas. All the entrepreneurs can start. And then stage by stage, you let them do their thing. You have them organize their demo days. As they have in the startup scene, they literally have demo days with investors, and the investors sit there and they look at the evidence of traction, of retention, of problem solution fit, product market fit. What evidence do you have? How much have you learned that you have a winning deck of cards, basically? And then they remove all the crappy stuff, and the few remain, and those go to the next stage with fewer contenders, bigger budgets, and the next round starts, like the Hunger Games. So lots of metaphors that are applicable. You need to create a game somehow in your organization. So create an innovation funnel. That is basically the message that I have for organization, and that is the third key to solving the innovative problem. Innovative dilemma. What is the pattern? What is the game, the arena that you create for all the ideas? It is not enough to just organize a hackathon, because that's a fantastic idea for stage 1, idea generation. But then what? What does stage 2 look like? If you cannot tell your employees what stage 2 looks like, then don't organize a hackathon yet. Define stage 2 first. And then when they're in stage 2, you can work on stage 3. Right? You can build it up as you go, I don't care, as long as you have a next stage for them to participate in, create the arena for all the ideas. And the innovation committee should not just invest in one pipeline and predict what all the great ideas are. Just let everyone win. We'll go sit there as jury members. That will be fun. We'll insult the hell out of everyone. That's a great role that I would like to play. So how can we have a startup culture? Well, at the same time, having a scale-up culture. We want to have both. That was the innovator's dilemma, right? Well, the solution, I'm still working on this picture, I promise. I know it looks complicated, so I just got started. I'm synthesizing all the ideas. But the fundamentals are there. We need a funnel, and I like drawing it bottom up because that explains the idea of the game. You get to higher levels in the game. That is what we want. Here we have lots of ideas starting in stage 1, but then stage 2 is problem solution fit, and then we have vision founders fit, product market fit, all the way up to there, and here we can scale, and you join the adults. And these ones are important because those pay for everything. The 7s and the 8s. I don't like the message that I sometimes hear, like, everyone needs to be more like a startup culture. No. You don't want these people who make all the money. They need to optimize for efficiency. They have competitors. It's very serious business for the adults. They're paying for the whole family. You don't tell them, oh well, just let's self-organize everything. The rules are different. Yes, self-organization is a great idea, but you cannot just give a whole bunch of people control over a system that needs to have uptime of 99.99999%, right? You can make such mistakes in the beginning with startups. So we're not having these discussions of what policies apply at which stage. So as entrepreneurs, we start with a product vision, then we grow to startup team and startup unit, and the game gets more complicated with more practices, more things to do. The older you get, the more serious life becomes, because you are moving from exploring to executing. And HR and marketing and others will have to adapt their policies depending on where people are operating. Now this is very, very crucial. I don't want people to mistake the maturity of a business model with the maturity of a team, right? Because you could have a highly mature agile team working on a new startup, on an immature business idea. That's great. Have very professional people working on a startup. You can also have the opposite of a very mature business model in stage 7 and 8 with highly immature agile people working on it. I know plenty of those teams. So they are completely different things. So an innovation funnel stages, and the vortex spins all the time from exploring to executing. It shifts gradually. So where do the frameworks fit in? I'm not throwing away any frameworks. I love Spotify model. There's great stuff in less and safe, etc. Because they're sensible practices that they just collected and shrink wrapped into a framework. But there's no recognition anywhere in those frameworks of to which stages do these practices apply. They just make the assumption that the entire business is in stage 7 or 8, which is an incorrect assumption. Then what happens with the startups? They don't fit into safe like that. You need something different. It's the same as, it's a very common mistake to make. I mean, there are plenty of fitness regimes and programs out there. Oh, let's do Pilates or Kalanatics or whatever. Yeah, sure, that works for adults. Maybe not for kids of 6 years old. They have other practices. They play in the playground. They are a football team or whatever. That's their exercise. Let them. So different rules, different practices. As I said, I steal from many sources, so I want to credit some of the sources that I find most useful. Eric Ries, famous for the startup, for the lean startup, has another book, The Startup Way. It has part of the puzzle, basically, that I just showed you with examples of how General Electric has an innovation funnel, etc., etc. The other book by Robert Cooper, I showed you his video. He has a stage gate process, looks exactly the same with defined stages and everything, and actual data about conversion rates, how many ideas you would need to get one profitable idea at the end. And then the book in the middle was also great with lots of practices for innovation centers and innovation funnels. It is interesting, wrapping this up, that the innovator's dilemma was solved long, long, long ago in nature. They call it species and organisms. A species is like an organization. It could theoretically live forever. It's like a family. You could theoretically have families that go back centuries. Yeah. The idea is that you then, under the next abstraction level, you have the organisms that start up, scale up, and screw up endlessly, in endless life cycles. That's the products and the services. You need to be a family of family members that are born, grow up, and die. It's natural. You need to aim for that and not see as the cash cow in the company, see the kids as competitors. Oh my God, they might at one point take over the family. Yeah, duh. That's the whole point of having startups in the organization. But treat the kids as kids, not as adults. It is not fair to ask your 6-year-old, how much are you going to pay me back for all the money that I invest in your school right now? What is your return on investment? And that's what finance managers do. They ask startup teams in companies, what is your ROI? It's absurd. But what you can do is ask your kids, how much did you learn today? Because that's a fine proxy for what is their what could be their success in the future. So that is what Eric Ries says we should be asking. They call it innovation accounting. How much did the startup learn today? That is an indication of how successful they will be in the future. So the only way not to be disrupted is to disrupt yourself. So go forth and make more babies. Thank you so much for your attention.